We're talking with Robert Barker from Meat and Livestock Australia. Well, Robert, what's going on with consumption around the world? What are you noting with trends at the moment?
The big growth markets at the moment for lamb and mutton are really in the Middle East and China. The United States has always been a big market for Australian lamb, and that it remains one of our largest markets and by far the most valuable. But the big growth trends we're looking at are China and the Middle East.
Now, with the US, it's been through a recession. Are there any signs that consumption's starting to increase a little bit?
There are some signs. It's looking good at the moment. We're not quite at the record levels that we were in 2007, but exports of lamb to the US have picked up in the last 2-3 years, and a bit of an improvement in the buying patterns of Americans as well.
Now, you mentioned China, huge lamb producer and sheep meat producer in the world compared to anyone else. What level of the market share is there potentially for the Australian industry, given that we're a much higher cost producer?
The market share potential, given how much China produces themselves, is relatively low. But in terms of imported market share, Australia is in a very good position. It's essentially Australia and New Zealand and very small volumes from Uruguay. So we're looking good there.
Now, New Zealand tends to have this reputation with its products of being clean and green. How are we countering the New Zealand campaigns?
It's not so much countering. We're looking at the food safety issue as a big selling point. The traceability of Australian product is very important, and those are probably the key issues that we're leveraging there.
Now, I noticed one interesting point within your talk, and it's only come around in the last few months, is that exports now actually exceed domestic consumption for lamb. What are the factors? Are we consuming less lamb, producing more lamb product, or are there other factors?
We've been producing a lot more lamb product over the last few years than we have historically, and it's a product of the change in the composition of the Australian sheep flock to more prime lamb production. In terms of the growth in exports, that's to do with the increase in demand in export markets. So particularly, like I said earlier, in China and in the Middle East, those markets have really grown in demand for lamb. So the Australian volumes are still relatively strong, relatively steady, but the growth is overseas.
Now, coming back to Australia then in production, and what are you forecasting for this spring? A lot of lambs on the ground now. We're in the latter part of winter. But what are you looking at production-wise across the country?
We didn't have a great summer for joining, but autumn was a lot better, and we're looking at reasonable numbers coming in this spring. Maybe not quite as high as we saw last year, when there was a big turn-off when everything started to get very dry. But in terms of production, we should be seeing better quality lambs coming on as well. So slightly lower numbers, but good levels of production.
So expecting yield then to be higher, so overall production of carcass weights up?
That's right, yeah. Here's hoping this good rain carries on and the mild winter as well.
So what about looking at the crystal ball from a price point of view? What's the speculation there?
Well, it's picked up quite well in the last couple of months, and the Australian dollar certainly isn't hurting that at the moment as well. So the price point for Australian lamb at the producer level is looking pretty positive, definitely relative to where we were at the start of this year.
And any other major messages you're trying to get across today to producers?
Just to keep in mind that the volatility we've seen in prices over the last couple of years is an issue for the Australian lamb industry, and where we end up sending our product overseas. Making sure that there's consistency of supply for the industry as a whole is a key issue that we need to keep in mind.
Robert Barker from Meat and Livestock Australia, thanks for talking with us today.
Thanks very much, Bruce.